Hey everyone, Alec here. This is the as yet unnamed D&D podcast you're about to see, starring me, Kari, and Kari's longtime friend and current Dungeon Master, Michael. Use the abbreviation DM for Dungeon Master a lot. We're going to be talking about our early experiences getting into D&D, how I use goblins for basically everything, and Michael talks about the best way to handle a gelatinous cube. In the future, we're going to have more series and stuff about D&D related topics for brand new players as well as seasoned veterans of the game. We're going to have a lot about different DM styles to show that there's no wrong or right way to play this game. I'm a more improvised, off the cuff, not really prepared dungeon master, while Karissa's more of a world building type of DM, and Michael, he's very technical and rules heavy. But everyone's got their own play style, and I hope you enjoy listening to us just talk about D&D for a while. Thanks.
Hi.
All right, be interesting. Go.
You're also part of this.
Welcome to Kraken's Crossing, where today, dungeons...
Did we tell you that's the title of the channel?
No.
Welcome to Kraken's Crossing, where blank meets blank, and depending on the thing, we're going to change what's crossing.
Oh, I thought you were just going to go do it.
No, because then you say, I'm Alec, and then I say, I'm Karissa. Your line is to say your name.
Yeah. Have you thought of your two things?
Yeah, we're Dungeons Meet Dragons.
Oh, cute.
Right?
That's good. Sounds good. Yeah, no.
We didn't respond with the enthusiasm that deserved.
It did deserve a tad more.
Welcome to Kraken's Crossing, where today, Dungeons Meet Dragons.
I'm Alec.
And I'm Karissa. And today we have Michael with us.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm Alec. I should have been more involved. I was looking at the angle and how this would have been cooler if I had it higher so we could see it in your angle. Yep. Trust me, there's cool shit down there. Here, I'll fuck up the camera angle. Look at that.
The whole camera angle.
Look, I've ruined everything that set me hours to set up.
This is how you start. By removing all the cameras.
Yeah. You set it all up and then
immediately mess it up. Those are some cool headphones you got there.
Oh yeah.
From our not sponsor.
We went over to, I think it's actually a new location, the Beverly Hills Razor store, the Westfield Mall.
Shout out Westfield Mall.
I feel like I never make direct eye contact with you, so this is weird for me right now.
Oh, is that also a weird thing for you? You're not very good with direct eye contact?
You don't have to look
it's
at
not
her
that
eyes.
I just don't generally look at people when I'm talking.
Yeah.
I like to.
But here we are in a talk show setting. Because this is a talk show and not a podcast.
No, it's not a video podcast.
It's not a vidcast either.
Yeah. What did you call it? A vodcast?
Well, a vodcast.
Okay.
Or a vlogcast.
Love a vodka.
Just put a V in front of anything and suddenly it's a video thing. Mm-hmm. You've seemed to have put a lot of thought into your outfit for this.
The thought...
Well, more thought than I guess I did.
You have...
I have not shown up
I
for a D&D
themed.
podcast. Yeah.
I also dress themed.
I just look like this all the time, and now I'm regretting it.
Nah.
No,
sorry, this is just me.
Yes, this was given to me by my sister. It's a hand-me-down, but it's got weapons all over it.
And then the harness you just found somewhere.
I mean, I found it in my closet, and I thought this would look good on top of this.
It's very, I don't know, weapony looking.
Yeah, as if I could unsheath a sword at any moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think that people who use swords usually wear sword themed clothing.
Yeah, probably not.
It's fan of sword person.
Yeah. I can't wear this to the Ren Fair is what you're saying.
You could.
I wouldn't wear it to battle. I think it's more what I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
Don't mess with that one. They're the weapons expert. Look at all the weapons they know about.
What if, getting into D&D, what if you had, a robe of useful items, you had a shirt of many weapons?
And you could pull the
Or you
weapons
could pull
out
the
of the
weapons
shirt,
out of the
like
shirt.
like a magician.
Yeah.
There. Huh.
No, like a fighter. So you have full proficiency. You have
So
proficiency in
you'd
all
be that
items.
you'd be
Yeah.
that one.
That's the one item that we need to have. The requirement is that you're not a spellcaster.
Yeah.
Only non-magical people can use this magical item. It's the bane of the wizard's existence. They're like, the wizard is so mad that you've got this magical toy that they can't use.
But yeah, pulling weapons out of you, that you'd be like that My Hero Academia lady.
Oh, Momo
Yeah.
with no clothing. I don't
Yeah.
think I have the rack to be that.
It's the shirt and the mechanic,
yeah.
not her look.
It's the way they're animated.
Yeah. Yes.
I would be worried like pulling like a morning star out of your collar and just like clipping yourself. Like it's sharp objects and you're
Yeah.
pulling it out under your armor.
That's true.
That would be scary.
You have a cleft chin? I do now.
Imagine, depending on how cute the robe looked, like being in your like ballroom espionage masquerade and you can pull a dagger out from like your cute little pocket with your pocket hanky.
That would be cute.
What if it was just like instead of a giant robe, you only had a few like weapons on like a post-it like card or
Like
just
an
like an
Ant-Man
ID
situation?
card? Yeah.
Or like
Like
owl house,
just knives
like,
come out of this one. Maybe we should start with like, well, we're all DMs. We have all DM'd before.
Yeah.
I guess
Wait,
technically you would
mind.
be the person who's done it least.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, how long have you been DMing for?
I'm currently not DMing, but probably like 4 years or something.
Okay, so yeah, we're all have done it forever.
We all have our different strengths, I would say.
Yeah.
Because the first time I played D&D was in high school, and I'm 27 now. So
Oh
do
my.
that math.
Slowly.
It's about 10 years.
So
Early.
about 10 years of D&D, I would say.
Yeah.
So you've been playing it
no,
much
no.
longer than I.
No, 10 years would be... Oh, yeah, because I was going to say, no, 10 years from the start of high school, but 10 years from the end of high school.
Yeah.
Yikes. So a decade of D&D.
All right, yeah, that's more than me.
I probably got into D&D sometime around like 2019, like 18, 19. So it's really only been about 4 years of me, but
But you've consumed it much
Yeah.
more rapidly than I have.
I feel like I've been consuming a lot of D&D for about 5 years, and for the last 3 years I've been playing in multiple games a week every single week, so just like very involved as of recent.
And Michael has great recall. So whereas I may have like played for longer, he can
know
really
all the rules.
recite, like he's really good at raw.
I have zero recall. I make up a lot. Probably just completely different from the way most people play D&D and the way most people DM.
Maybe you should go into your intro and then we'll talk about our strategies or like approaches to it. What do you think?
Yeah.
My intro?
What's
like,
your?
what's your-
How long have you been doing?
Me? Okay, so man, how long have I been? I'd say around 2016 is when I just did the math.
Yeah.
Kind of now when you said like, oh, 2019. I'm like, the heck did I start? And yeah, I don't really read the rules a whole lot. I have not read much of the Dungeon Masters thing. I don't even own a copy. And I've had, I hosted an entire series online.
Sure.
So you don't need to, it's possible to play this game being bad at reading and
Being illiterate.
being illiterate.
Illiterate.
I'll have a whole series about it at some point. It'll be great. But yeah, I don't own the Dungeon Master's Guide. I have like 3 players'
Well,
handbooks
technically,
though.
I don't own the Dungeon Master's Guide either. Well, I own.
Whose is that?
No. This
Starters
is,
set
oh my
includes
God.
a-
The Dungeon Master's Guide's right there. Well, that's not the real
yeah.
Dungeon
No, there's
Master's
2.
Guide.
Oh, I do have this.
I gotta-
All right. Oh, I have the monster manual.
I started with running a campaign for my ex's friends because I didn't have friends.
Which
I
ex?
had to use Steffi's
Okay, just
friends.
I was gonna say Steffi, but I
Yeah.
didn't want it to be the wrong ex.
She's the only person I've dated in the last like probably more than 10 years now that I'm thinking about
It's
it.
a good thing we still like her. So
Yeah. So yeah, and my first campaign I ever ran, my first session, it was, I think, like 8 or 9 people. It was a lot.
people.
It was not a great idea. But
Okay.
man,
It was your first idea.
hold on.
So it's okay.
I also want to do this for everyone. Of your first like session or first kind of campaign, what's one standout moment for you?
I have an answer for this question. I know that when I was playing through the first thing that resembled a campaign as a player, I was like not at the point where I understood sharing the table with other people, but I was really excited about all of the rules. And so I was just like spell casting circles around all of my newbies, kind of being antagonistic, like PvP. I'd be like, you don't hear this, I throw you in the other room, or like I prestidigitate the door shut so I can do this other thing. I was playing a death domain cleric.
Oh, geez, that's
Just being an absolute terror at the table, but having a great time with the rules.
I wanted to be a death domain cleric, and a DM once said that
No.
I couldn't. I had to earn it.
what the hell does that mean?
Those classes are reserved for men and women who can prove
No, that's all he said. I mean, he did eventually. Like, we had an arc where we went down to hell, or I don't even know.
Everybody has an arc where they go down to
Yeah.
hell. That's like such a common...
Yeah,
I haven't had one
and
yet.
that was when I could be a death domain cleric. But at that point, I was just like so deep into war cleric that
War cleric's good.
I know.
Why would you exclude death clerics but not war clerics?
I don't know.
Anyway, that was my memorable moment, is just absolutely wrecking shop in a way that's like kind of inappropriate in retrospect.
I studied for this first test. I aced the SAT on my first try.
Do you have memories of your first
Yeah.
foray?
Yeah.
It
What's
was in a
your answer to
garage.
this?
It was cold.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it in person.
Was your first one not in person?
No, because Joe was the DM. This was before COVID.
Yeah.
It was still digital because we were long distance.
Cute.
So imagine this, worse than having everyone in a Zoom room together is having everybody at the table talking over each other except for one person that's there as a computer, and that was me.
Oh, you
Just being like, hi, excuse me, I would like to say something, and no one could.
And you were wrecking shop.
Yeah.
Wow, you were that kid.
You were that guy.
Yeah.
He had
I still am.
sheets pulled up all across the screen.
Yeah.
But the most memorable instance in that session, not only did our DM at the time start by saying this is going to be a TPK, a total party kill. Michael's rolling his eyes because it was his brother. But at the end of the session, the last person standing happened to be a ranger, my friend Keegan, and we kept trying to get him to heal us, but instead he just kept healing his familiar. And we were just like yelling at him like, no, like heal the cleric so that they can help heal other people. He was just like, no, I've got this, and he just kept healing his like hawk that had like 3 hit points or something like that, like over and over again. We were
That's
like,
one of those
"Oh
things
my
where-
God."
That's what's up.
Have someone's ever like, I hear you, but I'm choosing to do this other thing.
I hear
It's like,
you.
but I don't think you really do. Because we're not saying that isn't the coolest move for you to heal your hawk or whatever thing that you feel like is so gratifying. It's like, let us play. We're sitting here just watching you.
The one time when Meta's like, well, what else can we do? Everyone
Meta
else
is
dead.
important. If there's one thing that I can stress in this first ep of your amazing vodcast is that you don't have to do everything in character,
Yeah.
especially if you're
It's
still
fine.
trying to figure out how to have fun at the table with your friends. Like, if you're playing a board game with your friends, there are elements where you are talking to one another. And Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons kind of pulls that rug out from under you and kind of implies that you're not allowed to really talk to each other.
We're just not used to that. So
Yeah, so just talk to each other. Be like, hey, I would be having more fun if we were doing this other thing, you know?
but what
My groups always met up all the time.
Hell.
and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you like. What
I didn't know it was like such a stigma with other people.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah.
People are really not about it.
I guess because like I'm like a forever DM, and where anytime I've usually played Dungeons and Dragons, it's because I set it up. No one's ever like invited me to play, and anytime they hear like it's like, oh, I like Dungeons and Dragons. Like, can you DM? Like, okay. I mean, like, I guess. But yeah, in that first session, my thing that I always remember the most is that just somebody had a bad die, and it's just one of those dies, and it was the funniest. It was the funniest thing. Just anytime they tried to do something horrible would happen, and I'm like, this is the best game on the planet.
Right. Because what you don't
Yeah.
Comedy.
is that there's no good or bad role.
Yeah, there isn't. It's just storytelling. It's just like you're all improving, having an adventure together. You're all just basically improving your own like series of Lord of the Rings on Amazon Prime. And like they tried to shoot their bow, but they crit failed, so I had the bow on string. They tried to take their sword out, but then they crit failed, so I had them like lose the sword in the bushes. It was great. Just like anytime
You're like an adventurer and all of your adventuring equipment is just falling apart in your first instance of battle. That would be so discouraging. I'd be like, I'm gonna go be a potion seller.
Yeah.
At least if that messes up, it'll be really far away from me.
Level 1. Which I usually don't start at level 1 anymore.
Yeah, I
When
usually
I'm
start at
DMing,
least 3.
When I'm DMing or when I'm a PC, I almost never start at level 1. Unless someone's like, I would only start at level 1 for a new player that has no background knowledge in like RPGs at all. Like never played a game, never read a book, never watched like.
In which case, you're not even really doing much of anything. Like in the game itself.
It's just to force someone to read it.
If you're like new to everything and you're running a level 1 like one shot or something in the 3 hours or whatever after you've already created your character and understand all of those rules, like of actually playing, you're gonna like maybe roll some skill checks, maybe do a combat encounter that lasts like 2 turns.
Yeah.
Like the amount of that you're actually using the rules is really limited, and it's mostly just about getting like a character in front of you that you know how to play. It's like a kind of controller, like a custom controller.
Man, let me tell you, having 9 brand new people playing with a brand new DM a turn, it lasted a while.
Yeah. I'm glad those days are beyond me. Where like even now,
D&D
if I
beyond
had no,
We're canceling the show now. It's been fun, guys.
I feel like now I have the capability of like understanding the rules, or even if it was a bunch of new people, I could facilitate them so that it's not like incredibly slow. Yeah, it's really a question of audience. Like even when you were saying like I wouldn't run a level 1 campaign, it's like you've got to know that each of those levels is going to provide a different experience, and you want to know what experience they want, your players, and you want. You're still a player, even if you're DMing.
True.
And then what are your constraints? Like if you only have a limited amount of time, or if people aren't going to be able to prepare beforehand, like plan to do the amount of things that you will actually have time to do.
That's also a good thing to say.
You know,
Plan.
like if you just
believe in
run a
planning.
game where you're all at a club and there's like some good people and some evil people at this club that they can interact with, then you need to plan like the people and their names and what they're going to tell them, like what information they have. And then beyond that, like don't plan anything, because the players won't have time. They're gonna want to do the main objectives you've thrown in front of them and some shenanigans which they will invent themselves.
Yeah, I do love inventing shenanigans. That's for sure.
That's pretty much where most of my campaigns live, is in the shenanigans.
But you could get really deep in the shenanigans. And the best part about D&D is like, at the end of every session of shenanigans, you take a bunch of notes. And then the next day,
you create a story from the
you reference the shenanigans, and you don't even have to make a story. If you reference them, and then your players make more, and then you connect all the dots together, like you the game inclines.
You planned it the whole time. It's like, yes.
The whole structure of Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop RPGs is for you to just goof off, and then if you do enough of the work in between, it like naturally makes a story.
Yeah.
Or you could be really stressed out and kind of write a story ahead of time. And
then watch your players dismantle it brick by brick.
Yeah, you have to be kind of a magician then, like false choice.
That's not one of the classes. So.
No. It's a dungeon master class.
Ooh, dungeon master classes. That'd be kind of an interesting thing.
Hey.
Yeah. I mean, they need more content for dungeon masters.
that down.
If you think like the tabletop RPG distributors, like Wizards of the Coast and whoever makes
and everyone else,
whoever makes the Powered by the Apocalypse sets, which is like the other half of the tabletop community, the people who are buying stuff from them are the dungeon masters.
Yeah.
So they need to make more content tailored at dungeon masters.
Would you say that the content that you viewed has been mostly towards player characters?
I think it's like 50-50 split. Like the D&D Beyond website has a bunch of useful stuff for making a game, which is like very geared at dungeon masters. But if you look at like just merch, you know, like spell cards, character sheets, all of that stuff, it's very like, I got excited about my one character, and so I'm going to buy a bunch of merch associated with them.
Yeah.
Is kind of the target demographic, when it could very easily be like a bunch of planners, a bunch of pre-written stories. Like those things I feel like don't get marketed as much for DMs. How to run a game.
I guess
they assume that the DMs are already invested.
Yeah, and I think it's almost a good assumption. But you're right, it's something that could be capitalized on. And now that I'm thinking about it, all of the things that you've mentioned, like I've created for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, D&D inspires a lot of people to like homebrew their own stuff.
Which I'm much better at. Well, much better. I have had more experience homebrewing than running pre-made campaigns.
Yeah, your character sheets look gorgeous.
Oh, that'll be a whole thing by itself. I've custom made a character sheet. Exactly.
I didn't even know that.
You don't know a lot about my D&D experience.
I don't.
Just wait and see.
Good thing we have a channel about showcasing D&D stuff.
I think, this is kind of tangential, but sort of on the same topic. One of my favorite parts about starting this like YouTube thing is that Alec and I didn't actually grow up in the same household together. So we also, on top of bonding from our previous like experiences, get to learn a lot of new stuff about each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's almost like you're not the only interviewee today.
Thank goodness.
I guess a general overview of my experience is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've only now been more into the DMing, but before, and even now, you're still like really in the player character mindset?
Yeah, I would consider myself a player first.
Okay.
And I DM'd Curse of Strahd very poorly. I like to say I sped run Curse of Strahd. We went to most of the locations and very quickly left. And I've DM'd this like Candlekeep campaign, but I wasn't doing it alone. I did it with someone else.
Which is another cool thing. Did you know that our fun Candlekeep mysteries, half homebrewed hodgepodge, queer only D&D is run by two DMs?
I remember that part. Yeah,
Pay the
yeah.
big bucks for all those
Yeah.
hyphens.
Yeah.
It's like a
Put it as a
Westeros title.
A subtitle underneath.
It's like a
me when
Panic
we're
at the
doing it.
Disco single.
True.
But yeah, so there are a lot of aspects to DMing that not only am I really new to, but I had like straight up not done or like refused to do, like character voices and sound effects.
That's what
It's the only thing I do.
limited on like sound, like doing music or audio.
BGMs.
I am really bad at that. But
I have other people do that for me.
And then you are more DM forward, which you've said already. You're exclusively DM.
Almost exclusively DM. I've only been a player character like twice in one shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anytime I make a character, it's just to like almost like learn mechanics of how like characters work, because I don't really. I just use like So as a DM, a lot of what I use is just redoing the Goblin stat block a lot.
it's a good stat block.
Yeah.
I don't really like. I just use the set of like Goblin NPCs and just like scale them and give them different things a lot of the time. That's like my shorthand to just making quick D&D stuff, is because like the Goblins are great for like fodder, and then you got the Bugbears to be like the heavies, and then just Goblin commanders to just do, or is it captain? See, I don't even know.
Yeah. It's kind of like the equivalent of like a villager, or like there's a generic stat block for every human that's not an adventurer, and I feel like they should have a more generic, like I guess like the thug stat block, but like
It's the Goblin.
I think
Infantryman.
I mean, advanced stat blocks are really just for understanding what someone's like resistances and like special skills are.
It's really cool art.
It's the cool art.
You don't even need the stat block.
No,
can
you
just
really
have the
don't.
art.
Just be like, oh yeah, you hit them. No, I'm just kidding. That's not
Yeah.
DM.
I mean, there's the very like in craze right now of just like hit points being whatever until it's
Relevant.
until we've decided that the fight is boring.
That's
How you DM.
that's how I DM.
I think that I trust that the handbooks and the rules and whatever are set up to make it interesting, and so I will.
I trust that they're, for the most part, balanced. I don't know if they're necessarily interesting.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why they're written that way for the most part. So with some like tweaking and editing, sometimes I like to play a monster straight through, because then I, as the DM, can be surprised sometimes along with the player of like how things set up. Like sometimes there'll be a move and I'll be like, why do they even have that? And then I'll use it and I'll be like, oh, this is definitely something this person would do. Like I was doing the Nintra Ciata fight.
That was a fun one.
Spoilers for like the 15th adventure from Candlekeep. She has some spells that a lot of the time when you see a tiny spell list on a very melee focused character, you're like, these are just backup or flavor, right? But there was Mirror Image, which I thought was a very cool, flavorful spell for this character. And Dispel Magic was something that I didn't think I was going to use until I looked back and saw that Nintra Ciata had a +7 to charisma without proficiency.
Must be nice. My current character has a -1 charisma, by the way.
But like
Good stuff.
it means that
Oh.
spell is more powerful than it could be for any player, because you don't add proficiency, I guess, unless you're specifically an abjuration wizard. But like, I don't know. You learn those little things sometimes when playing through a stat block that's really dense. And that's kind of, I think some of the fun for DMs is setting up a story and seeing how it plays out. Partially by seeing how your players interact with them, but just partially about like running the rules as written and seeing like what is effective and what isn't effective.
Yeah, anytime I'm using a mob that isn't like a goblin that I've reskinned, I'll usually just use whatever health it has just to see what happens and how quickly a character burns through it. Because I could just make another one show up if it's like going too
Do
quickly.
you go by the CRs, or do you just do it by like by the flavor of?
It depends. Sometimes I'm like, this thing looks cool and I want people to fight it, and they're nowhere near this level. So
Yeah.
I'll just make a baby version.
Yeah.
I love that.
That one's a
Do
teenager.
like
Baby fight.
version.
Yeah.
I want.
Baby-fied versions of everything.
Baby fight.
Yeah.
My mom
It
saw
has
this.
one ray and it tickles you.
My mom saw this on my purse, and she's like, "That is disgusting." I'm like, what do you want? It's so cute. It's pink.
fuzzy.
It's pink and fuzzy. She's like, "But it's
Low
got so
tolerance for disgust.
It's got so many eyes." I'm like, yeah, that's
You should see the original art
They're
for the
pretty gross.
beholder.
Yeah.
They want you to be afraid of the things you're fighting.
But I like your goblin premise because I think when you're starting out as an adventurer, anything that's trying to hurt you is like you have roughly the same odds of killing it. Like anything. It's just like a antagonistic blob. It doesn't need to be a goblin or a whatever.
It could be an antagonistic blob, just as long as it's not a gelatinous cube, because I hate those.
And the rules.
I don't think I've ever used one.
I've never used one, but I've been in one.
I've used a lot of slimes.
You can push a gelatinous cube out of someone. Use the push action to move it 5 feet away, and then whatever's inside it will like stay where it is.
What about like all the contents that's usually floating in it too also stays there? You
I
think?
get
'Cause
like
there's always like a skull and like a sword and a shield. And
my
some
understanding
bones.
is that the most effective way to deal with a gelatinous cube is to just push it, which seems stupid. You can push a ghost. You can shove a ghost in D&D.
I try to do that.
But I will say, for the purposes of it being recorded, that I constantly say stuff that's untrue all the time.
Yeah,
so
true.
everything that comes out of my mouth needs like a fact check filter.
Well, that's like also built into D&D. Is
Really?
that, like the
Think about how many
DM
books
is
there are.
there to make it work.
Not
Yeah.
only
Like-
that, but there are some. I mean, as a DM, there are some things that you're fudging. There are some things that you're just lying about, and then there's
Yeah.
some things that you're playing rules as written. But as a player character, you don't necessarily know when those things are happening.
Yeah.
So any time that you're like going through a combat or just like any sort of role play, you don't actually know if that's like the real mechanic because of this gelatinous cube. We had one beginner that was like a guest in our party, and it was her first time playing ever. She got stuck in a gelatinous cube and ended up suffocating in there. And we like, no matter what we did, like we couldn't get her out. Like we couldn't, no matter how many, I think we just failed a bunch of strength saves in a row. We couldn't like get a rope around her. There were so many things, and you know, she ended up suffocating in there, and we felt really bad. And she was like, "Well, that wasn't fun." I'm like,
Do you know what the
Yeah.
suffocation rules are for D&D?
The witch? Sorry.
The suffocation rules.
Well, I think I do, but now I'm not sure.
So if your constitution is less than 10, then you can hold your breath for 30 seconds. If it's 10, like if it is a +0 modifier or less, then you can hold your breath for 30 seconds. And then as you go up, your modifier is the number of minutes that you can hold your breath. And then after that, you get like rounds of rolling.
Where you're just like dying actively.
Where you're suffocating actively.
That's what happened. It was a slow death.
It's gruesome.
Yeah. But it's also like not necessarily something that I would even allow to happen for someone who's so new.
Yeah.
Because that just is not a fun time
Well,
for
that's
like-
also like
You're planning your session. You're like, someone new is going to be joining me at the table today. What are some things that I probably want to exclude? Monsters that have really complicated mechanics involved with them, like a gelatinous cube. Maybe like aerial combat would be confusing.
I don't even know how aerial combat
even
works.
like falling mechanics can be confusing.
Yeah.
jumping like across
Jumping
a
is
ledge.
annoying me too.
Just finding out your jump height and jump length.
Yeah.
Just roll an athletics check, whatever.
I don't bother with like any of this stuff because like it's just like
But yeah,
there's not enough
there
time
are
on the planet
rules.
for me
There
to
are
care
rules.
about it.
You have to teach them to someone who's new, and you don't want to waste time during someone's first session explaining rules because you already did so much of that. So you should just do like in my mind, especially if I have one new person at the table, my primary focus is what is everything that player, what is it that they already know that they can do, right? Like if I have a new player, sometimes it's different, but like generic first player, they want to play like Knifey McGee, a rogue with 500 knives.
Yeah.
Like that is somehow everyone's first play.
Not mine.
But you're like, okay, what is it that they want to do with this character? They want to be able to use their knives. They want to be able to maybe like show off the fact that they have a bunch of knives. So what is the scenario that we can put in? I'm like thinking either like gladiator pit or tavern. Those are like
Tavern Brawl, the classic opener.
and then like give them a really nice lob where like someone comes in and is like, ooh, I hope there's no knives here.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I got knives, and you can react.
But yeah, I feel like people try to like stray from tropes where it's like that's what people know.
People,
That's
that's why Back to the Future is still great.
I once had a person on their first session ever playing D&D be like, I want to play a mermaid with singing powers. And I'm like, okay, so you want to play Ariel from The Little Mermaid? But that is all doable. There is a mermaid race, merfolk,
We can do
and
this for
there
you.
is a magical singing class, bard. And you know what we did? Underwater bar.
Heck yeah,
See?
Like it's that easy.
it is that easy.
But
People can
Taylor-
get an ego about it and like, you gotta do what I say because like, I am the dungeon master.
Yeah.
Master is the word here.
Yeah, which like with the dungeon masters we've played, that's when all of the bad happens. Is when someone's like, I have a cool idea that I want to show all of my friends, and you're like, okay, well, that's usually not the way to start something like this.
You just have to sprinkle it in along the way so that, you know, like broccoli and
or
Yeah.
something.
get a
You
group
get
of
a kid.
people that are like,
Avid listeners that are like, I really like the thing that you're about
Yes,
to
because
throw
those
down.
just grow on trees.
Well, don't hold people at gunpoint to show them your cool story.
It's true.
Or do like 3 sessions or campaigns with someone where they like really trust you, and then you're like, now I've got you on a rope, I want to do my fantasy.
Which technically, I think Candlekeep is our first campaign together,
yeah.
which is a good foray into my experience of being both a player character and a DM. Like I spent a lot of time in both realms, and with Michael specifically, we used to just play, like we used to live in different cities, so we would just visit each other and only have time for a one shot where we would only play with the 2 of us, or sometimes he would like be a guest at his brother's table that I was a part of, so we didn't have that much time. And then I played with you a couple times with our siblings, but it never really like lasted that long.
No.
So I would say I've had a good mix of like really short campaigns, or like 3 shots or 1 shots, and then 2 to 3, 2.5 like longer campaigns to like bookend that.
And I'm about to finish your first campaign ever.
I know, I'm ready.
Excited.
I have the show I did, Roll Initiative. That's the first campaign I finished a campaign. Like usually, I run Lost Mines of Phandelver a lot. That's like, I know the first like just chunk of that game, like front to back, upside down, and sideways, and it's really fun every time I run it. Like it's completely different every time too. Even though it's the same stuff, I could just play that for like the rest of my time playing Dungeons and Dragons,
Which is so
and it'd be fun.
If they were gonna throw
It'd be
one
interesting.
like mini campaign into the books, which they do for Lost Mines of Phandelver, that's like an amazing choice.
Yeah.
I think.
I want to make a whole series about just like dissecting the.
You love that setting. Whereas
Yeah.
my DM strategy, and the reason that I like DMing, is because I like to change the setting and I like the world building aspect of it. So in terms of the storytelling, like I agree with both of you, what you're saying, like every player brings something different. And that's one of the great things about D&D is that you're telling this story together and you're weaving it together and you're drawing off what your players are giving to you, creating callbacks around them, etc. But I like the world building, and I like telling what's around you and like all the sensory and imagery effects.
And I think when you're creating like a world from scratch like that with other people, like you're setting down the groundwork, it's like everybody has different places that they draw from. And I think that they spotlight different parts of the world. So like some people, it's just a matter of focus, right? I think that the players do most of the writing and that the DMing is like putting the spotlight on different parts of the world.
Yeah.
By like deciding what you see, right?
It's always my like constant thought whenever I'm DMing is to just give every player a chance to be like part of the story and not like, yeah, get through your turn quickly. We need to get to like the important stuff.
Your build
like
as a regular character, you deserve a set amount of screen time.
Yeah.
I'm very like, I started doing this in my campaigns and then I've had other people kind of take this. And so I think it's something that's good for almost every campaign is if you're doing this long thing that might have multiple arcs or like stories within it, there should be an arc that's focused on each character. Like everybody should get an arc.
I did like that aspect of Candlekeep.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have like the perfect amount of backstory to be in one tight arc that kind of gets resolved. And people like to play off of a character throughout a whole campaign, but usually the like rise and fall of that character's arc can be like contained into a shorter narrative. And it's nice and satisfying to see that get prompted and then finish.
I enjoyed the ending of my character arc in this last.
You went like Kill Bill on it.
I really did, which is on point for the character that I'm playing, I think.
But yeah, for having setting up every character to have like an arc, a great example I just thought of right now is just like everyone should take Avatar: The Last Airbender as a great template of what you want to do for your players. Is that like every one of those characters, they all have like their own little arcs within the entire scope of the show. But then, you know, they all connect together. They all still interact with each other's arcs, even though they're not the focus at the time. And that's something a lot of people can reference, I guess.
Did I tell you that I tried, or I didn't try? I did do like a little one shot, or maybe it was a two shot of like a D&D two shot set in the Avatar world where I made up mechanics for bending.
I think you've mentioned it, but
They tried to do that.
we didn't get deep into it.
D&D and it failed.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, it was just something that was an option that you could do for flavor, which is really what I play D&D for, just fun flavor.
Yeah.
World
Some
building.
supplements.
I have like a rule set I've been building up. It's still really rough, but it's basically I tried to put Kingdom Hearts into D&D.
Oh, true. My favorite game.
It's kind of the reference I always give to people if they're not like really into Kingdom Hearts is like, oh, you know the movie Thor Ragnarok? It's basically like that.
Well,
you know, there's magical axes and people just kind of leap several like yards without effort, and then like movement's kind of whatever. Can people fly? Not really, but they kind of can. So it's a little more like free flowing in the sense of movement. I want people to feel more like a magical, like dude like Thor, where he can do ridiculous things.
He's a god.
That you can't really usually do in D&D.
True.
So it's kind of like the same thing in like Kingdom Hearts, where like sometimes he can throw his Keyblade and like teleport several feet over that way. So it's trying to figure out mechanics like that work into it. But that's a whole nother.
What would your Keyblade be?
Ooh.
So the way it worked, it's like an attachment to whatever weapon you have. So it's like a bracelet
that's
thing.
not what he meant.
Oh,
Exactly what he
okay,
meant.
sorry.
Like in real life, if
IRL.
you had a
Well,
Keyblade,
so
what would it look
these are
like?
two different questions.
When you put the chain on the thing and
So,
like it transforms it.
The way that I'm thinking about it now is, what is the keychain that is an item that already exists that you would put on the end of something, and what would it look like? Like, what would it transform?
When it transforms.
Before I lose this thought, speaking of Marvel and Kingdom Hearts,
Hey, leave your charm in the comments what you think your Keyblade would look like. That's how un-D&D of a question to ask,
Yeah.
but that is, I want to hear what people's charms would be now.
when people ask me what Kingdom Hearts is, because people ask me what my favorite video game is, favorite video game series, I always say Kingdom Hearts. They're like, oh, like, what is that? I'm like, you know how people say that Marvel is the greatest crossover of all time?
They're wrong.
First of all, they're wrong. And second of all, this series did it first, except with Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters.
Wow.
Well, technically, Marvel did it, in comics.
Yeah, whatever.
Disney or Donald Duck, the most powerful mage of our time.
Truly, he did a
Cast
Zeta Flare.
Zeta Flare, which I don't know much about Kingdom Hearts, but I know that one step below Zeta Flare restarted the whole game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And yet he won't heal you. So basically, like any cleric.
quack quack.
Yeah.
Donald Duck
He'll
and
heal
his
Goofy
family
a lot.
represent the bourgeoisie.
Wow.
Oh man.
Oh no. Exposed. Do you know what your Keyblade would look like?
I think it would just have like a bunch of hearts on it. Like
Oh yeah.
the blade itself is the easier part for me, where like it would have like the heart where the keyhole, not
The hilt.
the hilt of the blade, yeah, and then it would have like a bunch of like heart animations going off of it.
That'd be cute.
Yeah. I don't know what would attach it though. Maybe like a backpack.
A whole backpack?
As the keychain?
Yeah, clip it on. Pull it out of my backpack.
They materialize in your hand.
Out of my own heart.
There's that too. No, I don't think I could. I don't think I could feasibly answer this without like many references.
You're kind of a
and-
sword person too.
I know. I really am a sword
You're
person.
holding yourself to a high standard
So,
with this question.
in fact, the first
There
thing
are
I
swords
thought of-
here, and none of them are yours.
The first thing I
Where are
thought
your
of
swords?
when I don't own any swords, I told you that I need to buy one.
Oh, we need to
I
get
just
you
have
some
drawings of them because I'm poor.
Wow. Very
One day-
11th grade. video.
One day, the only thing
One day
people are
in
going to
11th
send
grade?
you is
No,
swords.
Like it started way earlier than that, and it's continued.
So, you were saying
I was saying. The first thing that came up in my mind was it'd probably just be a sword. Like,
unlock
the sword.
which there are keyblades that look more or less just look like swords
Cool.
instead of like keys.
Do you have an answer to this question?
I was going to say something like beach theme, but then I thought of grilled cheese, and now I just want a grilled cheese sword.
Yeah.
Well, it would be made,
Where like
made out of grilled cheese.
no, like the charm, like the charm itself
the
would be
charm
like a
is
little
cheese.
grilled cheese, but then the whole sword would be like grilled cheese thing.
I'm imagining it's like a key, but it opens like a grilled cheese. Like
is
the
even
bread is
cooler
just
now.
shaped, and then it would kind of flop around.
That'd be kind of cool if it was just floppy.
Like
It's like a grilled cheese flail.
It's almost like when they put mouths on things that don't have mouths,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it just kind of does that. But that would be the animation of like the
Yeah.
cheese gooing.
I think
I don't know if there's even a blade at this point.
could be
Yeah,
interesting, where it's like a whip instead.
yeah.
I'm surprised I haven't done that yet.
It's got like
get on it.
a cheese
For
whip.
our next-
Cheese whip whenever you swing the thing, like a string of cheese comes out,
Yes.
just smacks things.
We're just coming up with ideas for free.
Yeah. Nothing to do with this. It's okay.
Going off of Keyblade, we could just go like, what's your 3 favorite like D&D like weapons?
To use
Yeah,
like the original, like
of the original like set of stuff.
D&D weapons, I usually just think of them in terms of
Dies.
like what they're capable of doing. Because of the way they've set it up, I don't really often imagine myself with the weapon. I just think about like it has a specific damage type, a specific stat that's associated with it, and then some like rules plus or minus. You know, like there's whips and nets, which are kind of funky.
Do you have an answer?
Well, the one that I have the closest attachment to is the Morning Star, because I played with a Morning Star for a really long time. It's one-handed. It's essentially a short sword, but it does piercing damage instead of slashing damage, which I think is worse for resistances. There are a couple of things that are resistant to piercing that aren't resistant to slashing. But I like the idea of like, I don't know, it's very cool looking to me. Like a sword is very just, it's like a line.
What are you going to say about swords, huh? What are you going to say?
But a Morning Star is like a spiky ball. Kind of gory when you think about actually hitting someone with it, but it's fun to think of swinging around. I like the pointy, it's like a star almost. It kind of reminds me of...
Star made of metal and spikes.
Yeah. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Monster's a good one. Do you have one?
I use rapiers a lot for some reason.
I was going to say rapier.
For me, or like you?
Effective.
I play a lot of bards, so I want something that I can...
If you were like min-maxing your weapon choice, rapier is like top of that
Pretty
list.
good, yeah.
It's like rapier, a great sword if you're playing anything except for a barbarian, and then the barbarian, it's really useful to have the great axe because you can roll an extra damage die.
Yeah.
Actually, there's some reason why. I don't remember why.
It's like 2d6 versus a d12 is like fundamentally the same. Like you don't really have to worry about the stat differences between those two, but the way in which you do like critical successes or like features like your great weapon fighter, your the like half orc ability that's the same as the barbarian ability where you get to roll extra damage die. I once had a level 17 barbarian that was a half orc and had Orcish Fury as a feat, and also had like it was a accumulation of feats that made it so that they dealt like a normal amount of damage, but whenever they crit, they dealt like 8 times that amount of damage.
Goodness gracious.
You love min-maxing, though.
Yeah,
People like
Just for
min-maxing.
fun.
I like min-maxing because I like the rules. Like I like being
That's a
told
good
no.
point. Yeah.
I like being told no, but I like finding the way in which you
Yeah.
can say yes.
Michael's really good at just just multi-classing up the wazoo so that you
Oh my
can
god,
do
yeah.
multi-classing is gonna be a separate thing.
Mhm.
Like if I want Joe on here for D&D Beyond versus Analog, I'm at the Analog, he's the D&D Beyond. I want you here for multi-classing
Oh yeah.
for that know-how
We'll
because
have
I'm really
multi-class.
Yeah,
really
I
bad
think
at
I think
multiclassing.
that you just lean towards wanting to do the same. Like if you love those high level features,
Yeah.
which I think,
yeah.
But anyway, my choice is a Morning Star, just out of
Yeah.
flavor.
I
So,
would say-
actually, real quick, for one of my other things was I had a character that I set it up for this, but I never got to actually use the weapons where they were short range one-handed crossbows because I wanted them to be using them in like melee range, like John Wick style.
There's a
But we did not end up
quarter
doing it.
shooter.
Yeah, it's like it's a feat or something that you
Yeah.
can use.
I like using close quarter shooter with warlocks because Eldritch Blast is like your main damage dealing thing. And if
really good
anyone is
idea.
standing within 5 feet of you, that's going to have disadvantage no matter where you shoot it at. So if you combo that with close quarter shooter, then it's being a multi-class, that's either a feat or a multi-class to
He's
do
already
that.
thinking of a new character
Yeah.
instead.
An old character.
But yeah, like I'm with all my hubbub of like I don't care about the rules and all that. What I do like about the rules is when I'm making a PC and just like making them using them in such a way that it's like, why did you make this thing? So I made like a paladin where their main attack was Eldritch Blast.
Hell yeah.
And like that's what they would do most of the time. And another one was I made a warlock where it was a magic lamp was the what do you call it?
the pigeon
Their
one?
deity. Yeah. And it's a pigeon holding a magic lamp. So like the genie is the character I'm playing as speaking, but my character itself is this pigeon holding a lamp.
Infinite possibility.
Yeah. So this genie just keeps trying to make the pigeon like do its 3 wishes, but it's a pigeon.
So it can't win.
So it's having a tough time doing it.
Pigeons don't dream. Pigeons don't want for anything.
Sorry, what were we going to
I
say?
can't remember now.
Oh, swords. Any sword was good for
Really,
you.
any sword. I do like anything that can be thrown, such as like a throwing axe or a dagger. But
Javelin queen.
I don't like, or a javelin. I, for some reason, don't like bows or arrows. Like a bow.
It's a different
I don't like
thing.
bow.
That's a different mechanic.
Just like in my mind, like I don't like it as much. I'd rather play like a half caster and get my range from spellcasting.
Yeah, I do
For
a lot
some
of
reason,
spells.
I'm not like a Katniss girl, I think.
Yeah. When I'm thinking about the difference between those two things you just mentioned, it's really strength or dex.
Yeah.
I'm like way back in the
you're
rules.
Right. And I'm also like I always usually have a higher dex when with
Interesting.
players with
But I was
players
like, javelin for me is the solution to someone who needs to hit a bird, but does not have aim, right? And that's kind of the solution that they found in D&D. You need to hit a bird. You have this giant stick that you can just throw.
Part of it will hit the bird.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to play a warlock that with throwing weapons as its like thing, where it could just resummon it back into its hand.
Well,
But I've never gotten around to it.
is the one that summons things back to its hand.
The what?
The Eldritch Knight. Eldritch Knight.
Hexblade Warlock, but I don't even
Oh.
think that that's
No,
true.
like the warlock can just summon its weapon whenever it feels the pact weapon, whatever. It can appear back into your hand.
It might take a bonus action. I'm not
It's
sure.
probably something like that. Yeah, but
Yeah, get like 3rd level, get a packed weapon with whatever
Yeah.
your patron is, and then throw it back. I would say a faster solution to doing the exact same thing that you're thinking is take 1 level of, or 2 levels of Artificer, and then in your
I have not looked into Artificer.
infusions, which you get in the morning, you can have a retrieving weapon at 2nd level. So you just do, it's the same thing that you're thinking of for Warlock, except the flavor is like magical tinkering instead of a patron, and you get those abilities that you want right away.
Which we talked about this offline, and by offline I mean not with a camera in front of us or a microphone in our face. What kinds of classes we gravitate towards or which ones we like the best. One of yours is Warlock, and we're both of us were
Yeah.
like, no Warlock for me. And then I can't remember what our categories were.
We did a pick.
Yeah,
list.
mine was Bard, obviously.
Yeah.
I had Cleric.
Cleric was your top one, but it was like everything else was like
on draft pick.
everything else was way below Cleric.
Yeah. Was Warlock your first round?
Warlock's my first round.
There you
Yeah.
go. But of our like favorite classes,
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Cleric. I'll play Cleric any day.
the Amen.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fine for a first episode there. That's hour 15.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Thanks,
to cut out the
everyone.
Love Island stuff.
Well, that's why I let it go for 15 more minutes,
Oh, I
because I'll
see.
probably have to cut out that first 15 minutes. Make that a separate thing.
Yeah.
That could be like
Our
social-
reality.
a little bonus video
Yeah,
there, that
yeah.
one.
Well, it was,
'Cause it was
nice to be
It's good
here.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. We'll do this again.
We will do
'Cause
this.
this was actually fun.
Yeah. As opposed to what?
I don't know.
Work.
You mean
Work.
You mean sitting and watching me play a video game isn't as fun as actively participating in the thing that we're doing?
I have fun hanging out with you too. It's family time.
If you want to hang out with Kari and I some more, check out this video here of us playing God of War. Talk about spitting food into people's mouths, which I swear it's a pretty funny story. You'll have to go watch the video to hear it though. See you next time for more D&D and nerdy content.